reminder, we have Aaron in the back videotaping the session for us today. It's going to be used for our trainings in the future if you guys miss one, and also for a promotion for teen court. This morning we want to start, we have a guest speaker, Becky Byer. She is the clerk of Juvenile Court, and she's worked extensively with the steering committee to help set up the teen court program. So she knows a lot of the ins and the outs of the court system. So today she wants to talk to us about the juvenile court versus the teen court. So, Becky.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'll first start by telling you a little bit about my job and what it actually means to be the clerk of juvenile court. Basically, I am in charge of overseeing all of the juvenile cases that come before the Lincoln County Circuit Court. Those would include delinquency cases, which are cases that are, I guess you could say, criminal type cases. They're similar to adults who are, charged with a criminal offense. Could range from anything from disorderly conduct, which would be, maybe getting into a fight at school or getting into an altercation with your parents at home or causing a disturbance. Could also be, serious offenses, stealing a car, robbery, anything that would be a crime if committed by an adult is considered a juvenile delinquency. Many of the types of offenses that we see in juvenile delinquency court, you will also see in teen court. The difference is that when I'm seeing them in delinquency court, they probably are more serious offenses, or they're kids that have maybe already gone through teen court, so they're no longer eligible to go to teen court again. Or they're kids that maybe have a history of delinquent behavior, and again, teen court isn't the option for them. I wanted to talk to you today about the differences between the delinquency court and the teen court. Although they're a lot alike, there are a lot of differences. But I think the one thing to keep in mind is that the two are alike in that we're all here to try and improve the community and to give these kids a second chance and to help them better themselves and be successful members of society. So in your handouts, I think Amanda said that they're in the binders, there's a gold sheet, and I just have the teen court on one side and the juvenile court on the other side. And what I wanted to do is go through with you the different, phases of the court system and compare the two so that you can see how they differ from each other and how in some ways they may be, very similar. I'll first talk about the setting. The setting in delinquency court is going to be pretty formal. It's held in the courtroom at the courthouse in either branch 1 or branch 2, depending on which judge that particular case is assigned to. There are always, certain members that are going to be present. Obviously, you're going to have your judge. There's always going to be a judge overseeing the proceedings. And I guess I can maybe draw this for you so you can put it all together. You would have your judge. He oversees. I don't know if it's going to stay or not.
So we always take it off and stick it well.
Right.
That's what I usually do.
So your judge oversees the proceedings in delinquency court. In the teen court, there's no one really that presides over the proceeding itself, but Amanda, the teen court coordinator, is always going to be there to guide you and offer suggestions and answer any questions that you may have as to procedure or what you're able to do. A couple of other members that would be present in the delinquency setting would be the court reporter, and that individual is present at all proceedings, and it is their job to, they have a funny looking little machine, it's called a Stenograph Machine. And it's their job to take down word for word everything that is said by everyone in the proceedings. So that if there's ever a question or someone wants to get what is called a transcript of the proceedings, they can always look back in those notes and find out every little thing that each person present said. Another individual would be the clerk. And as the clerk of juvenile court, I'm present in the proceedings as the clerk. And in the courtroom setting, it's our job to basically take minutes, just, get the highlights of what goes on in the hearing. If there are witnesses that are going to be testifying, we need to swear the witnesses in. Mark exhibits, if exhibits are offered, that kind of thing. The other key players would be the district attorney. You have in the courtroom, have any of you been in the courtroom yet? Have you done any training or anything?
Well, our previous members.
The panel members, I suppose, would have. But the courtrooms are both set up the same. They have 2 counsel tables.
Those are the 2 that we put together for court.
Okay, I wasn't sure how you set it up.
We put those
Okay.
2 and then we have them sit right in front.
Okay, so the one on the, if you're facing the judge, let's say, if you're facing this way, the one on the right-hand side is the prosecuting table. That's where the district attorney sits. And usually in juvenile delinquency cases, there's also a social worker present because each delinquent is assigned a social worker. So you have your DA who's presenting the case to the judge and prosecuting the case on behalf of the county or the state. And then over here is your defense table. And that's where you have your juvenile and his or her attorney. And the difference, I guess, there between the juvenile court and the teen court is that in a teen court setting, the juvenile is not going to appear with an attorney. They're there on their own. Sometimes their parents are with. Do you allow the parents in the courtroom?
Yeah, they have to have their
Okay, okay. So you have your juvenile and attorney, and then in the back here in the gallery, there can be a number of different people, but juvenile proceedings in the circuit court setting are closed confidential proceedings. So unless the people present are a party to the case, they're not allowed in the courtroom. Parties to the case would be, the parents. Sometimes you'll have a situation where maybe the juvenile lives with a grandparent or another relative, so the court would usually find that that person has standing and is allowed to be in the courtroom. Sometimes they'll have a legal guardian or, possibly a different social worker or someone that's been providing services, but that all gets cleared through the judge before they're allowed in the courtroom. So that's a little bit about the differences in the setting of the teen court versus the juvenile court. And we went through the people that are present. Now, the next item on the list is what I've called the governing document. And in a delinquency situation, the governing document or the document that brings the case to court and is the basis for the case is going to be it's called the Juvenile Delinquency Petition. And it's a petition that is prepared by the district attorney who brings the case before the court. And it will have listed in it the charge, or in some cases, actually, in a lot of cases, more than one, sometimes many charges. And it states the date on which the offense took place and the statute number of the charge, and then a real brief description of the charge. And then attached to that are all of the supporting documents, which could be, statements that were taken throughout the course of the investigation. Sometimes there are interviews that occurred with law enforcement or sometimes school officials. Just anything that supports the charges that are brought before the court. Now, in a teen court situation, the governing document is basically a citation. It's a ticket that's written by law enforcement saying, on this date at this time, you were allegedly committing this offense. That's really all there is to it. So in the teen court, there's not as much involved in that initial document that brings the case before the court. The next item on the list is rights. In a teen court situation, the rights of the juvenile are basically considered waived, where in a delinquency type proceeding, the juvenile has several rights. They first have the right, and the judge will inform them of all of their rights at their first hearing, but basically they have the right to, one, deny the allegations that are contained in the petition, or they can admit every now and then someone will come in and, yep, I did it, what are you gonna do to me now? But usually at the initial hearing they will deny, and then things will unfold and we'll work through the case. But after that initial plea, the admission or the denial, they're informed of their right to have a trial. If they would deny the charges, they can have a trial. They're informed of their right to have an attorney, to bring witnesses before the court, to request a substitution of judge if they have maybe been before that particular judge in the past and didn't like the outcome, or maybe they know the judge on a more personal level, or for whatever reason they don't feel comfortable having their case heard by that judge. They can say, I want a different judge, and then that kind of starts a whole new process. But in the teen court, you don't have to deal with any of that, because one of the main, criteria to get the case into teen court is that the juvenile has to admit that they committed the offense that is charged in the citation. So everyone that would come before you has already said, yep, I did this, I agree that I did it, I'm here to see what you are going to impose on me as punishment. Does anyone have any questions so far? If you do, as I'm going along, just feel free to ask. And then getting into the procedure, we talked a little bit about admitting or denying, and then the right to have a hearing if they deny, where in the teen court, you don't have any of those rights. You basically accept their admission of guilt, and then the teen court panel, which is what you guys will be serving on, will start their process of asking the questions to get at the heart of the offense a little bit more, and determine exactly what happened, and get a feel for what has gone on that maybe led up to this, and what are some things that are maybe going on in that particular juvenile's life at that time, so that you have a real good understanding of what their current situation is, so that when it comes time to impose their sentence, you impose a good sentence that is going to help them, and hopefully help them address a lot of their problems and the issue that got them before the court in the first place. In a delinquency case, if there is a fact finding, again, they can call witnesses. I can tell you though that probably 90% of the cases get settled without having to go to trial. There's usually a lot of negotiating amongst the district attorney and the social workers and the defense attorney and the juvenile, and they are usually able to come to some sort of agreement as to what the sentence should be. Once that happens, then the case goes to the disposition phase. So in the delinquency setting, you have several hearings before the case is actually concluded, whereas in the teen court, you basically have your one appearance, you hear the facts, you impose your sentence, and everything is done. And then it's up to the juvenile to just complete their sentence. Where in the delinquency court, it's a little bit more lengthy. I would say the average time that it takes to get a case through delinquency court from the time the petition is filed through the time that the sentence is imposed is roughly 90 to 120 days. And then the sentence is generally for a year. Usually with juveniles, they're placed on supervision, which is the equivalent to adult probation. Rather than reporting to a probation officer like an adult would, they report to their social worker, who is, I guess, the equivalent to an adult probation agent. And they are under the supervision of that department or that social worker for a year or however long the order is in place. And there are certain rules that they need to follow and certain requirements that need to be met. That's it. Now, as far as dispositions or sentences, if that's an easier word to comprehend, I guess, they're in some ways very similar, but I guess the difference is that there are a lot more things that can be imposed through delinquency court than the teen court, and there are more services available through the delinquency court. And some of the sentences are, such as secure detention or placement on electronic monitoring or home detention. Those types of things just cannot be ordered by the teen court. They have to be ordered by a judge. So you would never be put in a position where you have to order that a juvenile go to secure detention or, be placed in his parents' home with an ankle bracelet for 30 days. Where in the juvenile court, that happens pretty regularly. I talked about the supervision. Again, usually the supervision in a delinquency case is up to a year. Generally it is a year, and sometimes longer if it needs to be extended for any reason. Where with the teen court cases, the sentence is usually done or complete once the juvenile has completed the courses and the sanctions that are imposed by you. And once that is done, that case, I guess I maybe skipped a step here in explaining how the case actually gets to the teen court. But I talked about the citation being issued. Every citation that's issued to a juvenile comes to my office. And when the juvenile decides that they want to go to teen court, that kind of creates a bump in the road for us, because then everything is put on hold. We, let them know that they don't need to appear at the date and time that's indicated on their citation. And then that citation, as far as my office is concerned, is just kind of sitting there dormant until we're informed by Amanda that there's a teen court sentence imposed. And then when all of the programs and courses and whatnot are complete, Amanda will notify me of that, and then that case is actually dismissed. So that is the benefit of going through teen court versus a circuit court, because once the teen court sentence is complete, we dismiss that case, and it's as though that citation never existed. So really, if a youth received a ticket for, let's say, underage drinking, and it was their first offense, and they decided to go to teen court with it, they probably would get, I don't know, an alcohol class, is that, okay. They would complete their alcohol class and whatever else is imposed by the panel, and then Amanda would notify me, and that case would be dismissed. So let's say, hopefully this doesn't happen, because we all hope that the teen court has a positive effect and that the youth don't reoffend, but every now and then they will. But if they were to get their second ticket within the same calendar year, rather than it being considered their second offense, it would only be considered their first, which is a huge benefit, because if you receive a second drinking ticket within the same calendar year, the penalty greatly increases. The fine goes up, there's a mandatory driver's license suspension, and there is a mandatory notice that goes to the State of Wisconsin Department of Motor Vehicle. And, you know, when it gets to be third and fourth, it goes up even more. But that is one of the benefits of the teen court. So some of the potential dispositions, and I think we're going to be talking about that a little bit later today. So I'm just going to touch on them a real little bit. But I talked already about the supervision. Community service can be ordered by both the teen court and the delinquency court, so those are the same. Educational classes, the classes themselves may differ a little bit than what's available through the teen court versus the juvenile court, but they can be ordered by both. And apology letters are similar in both. We see a lot of times in the delinquency cases that the juvenile has to write an apology letter, and I think that's a pretty common sentence in the youth court as well. Additional sentences that can be ordered in the delinquency court could be things such as restitution, if there were damages caused, whether they be to property or to a person. Maybe they incurred medical bills. Let's say in the case of a stolen vehicle that maybe gets wrecked, or a burglary where there was property damage, property stolen. The court in a delinquency proceeding orders restitution, and that restitution needs to be paid by the juvenile during their term of supervision. In addition, there can be counseling ordered, and the counseling is usually geared toward whatever the juvenile's issues are at that time. A lot of times we see like anger management counseling or family counseling, just to deal with whatever issues are causing the juvenile to be delinquent. If it's a situation where either drugs was involved or drugs is maybe the cause for the delinquent behavior, the juveniles can be ordered to undergo alcohol and other drug assessments, and then follow through with whatever the recommendations of that assessment might be. Again, I talked a little bit about placement in a secure or a non-secure juvenile facility, which is basically the equivalent to a county jail, but it's a jail for kids. Not a very fun place to be, from what I've been told. And then also the home detention, and occasionally, for some of the real hardcore students, placement in correctional facilities such as Lincoln Hills. The effect of teen court versus juvenile court. Again, the teen court is not on the juvenile's record, whereas the juvenile delinquency adjudication stays on that juvenile's record forever. juvenile records are closed records, so, you know, people can't just come into my office and say, I wanna look at so-and-so's record because they wanna work for me and I don't know if I want them to because I heard that they were involved in juvenile court. I can't release that information. But if you were a juvenile delinquent and say you were convicted of a felony, that felony conviction sticks with you for the rest of your life, whether you were a juvenile at the time you committed the act or not. So if you fill out a job application or anything where you have to say, you know, I've been convicted of a felony, you would have to check that box, yes. And that would also impact your right to possess and bear firearms for the rest of your life. So it does have a pretty big impact. Additional effects would be, for example, if it's a sexual assault or a sexual offense, that juvenile would have to register with the Wisconsin Sex Offender Registry. And again, you know, that's something that, even though the record itself wouldn't be open, that label sticks with them for the rest of their life. And again, you know, with the teen court, basically you complete the sentence, the case is dismissed, no one ever knows you even got a ticket. The cost, I think, is the last item on the list of things to discuss. Basically with the teen court, the juvenile or the youth pays the $20 teen court registration fee, basically to cover the cost of materials and whatnot. And then occasionally, if they are ordered to participate in a particular program that there may be a fee for, they would have to pay for it. Those costs, generally they range from $25 to $60. That's a bargain compared to what it costs to go through juvenile court. If you just receive a citation through juvenile court, they can range anywhere from, you know, depending on the age of the juvenile and the type of offense, probably anywhere from $25 to $186, I think is where the current cap is at. But that's just for a citation. If you actually go through juvenile court and there's a delinquency adjudication, you have attorney fees from, even though you're represented by the public defender, your parents are responsible for reimbursing the public defender for those fees. And it is $240 for misdemeanor cases and $480 for felony cases. And it doesn't matter if you have one case or 12 cases, that's per case. So some of those fees can get pretty hefty if it's a child that, you know, continually gets into trouble. In addition to that, there's a $20 victim witness fee that is mandatory per case. And also, you know, restitution. I talked about restitution a little bit. There is a $5,000 cap on juveniles, but I mean, $5,000 is still a lot of money for a juvenile who, in a lot of cases, probably isn't even working, or if they are, is just making minimum wage. And then in addition to that, if there's any placement in secure detention, those fees are roughly $160 a day. So those are all things that the juvenile's parents ends up paying, which really doesn't seem fair when it's the juvenile who's getting into trouble, but the law says that the parents are responsible for those fees. So it really is a benefit to be able to utilize the teen court program when you're looking at the costs that are associated with the juvenile delinquency program. And then also with the delinquency, they would have to pay for counseling and any of the programs that are ordered, just as you would through the teen court. So those are the I guess, the highlights or the major differences between the two. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? Anything you want to ask?
What age does the juvenile court range? Like, do they adult? Like, what do they define as a juvenile?
If they are under 12 years old and are alleged to have committed a delinquent act, which is a crime if committed by an adult, it can go from 12 years through 16 years, because when you're 17 years old in Wisconsin, you're considered an adult. So if you commit a crime at the age of 17, that goes to adult court. Sadly enough, we have had juveniles who are younger than 12 and have been referred for delinquent acts, but they are called JIPs. They're not titled delinquent, they're called a juvenile in need of protection or services. That's where the JIPs comes from. And they're handled a little bit differently. I mean, the process is the same, but I mean, it would have to be a pretty serious offense for the judge to be convinced to, send a 10 or 11-year-old to secure detention or something like that. But as far as the counseling and that sort of thing, those types of sentences are usually the same. Yeah.
When you commit the offense and you're 16, but while it's going through the process, you turn 17, are you still tried as a juvenile, or do you go over to the adult court?
You're still tried as a juvenile. It's based on the age that you were at the time you committed the offense. And there's a waiver process too, where, if you're like 16 and a half at the time you commit the offense, and they feel it would be more beneficial for you to be treated as an adult because of, maybe it being a very serious, violent offense or something like that, they can petition the judge through the juvenile court to waive you into adult court. And if that petition is granted, then you're tried as an adult. Any other questions? Comments? No? Okay. Great. Thank you, Becky. Ready?
Okay, now what we're going to show you is a mock demonstration of what a teen court would look like, and you guys will be able to practice it after lunch. We're going to quickly go through our roles just so you know what we're going to be doing. I'm going to play Amanda. Amanda Kosman, she's the teen court coordinator, so I'm just going to make sure all things are set. You'll sort of see what she does.
I am the escort. I will be going out and getting them and bringing them in here and asking them their names and telling them they can sit down. And then after we have done all our questioning, then I will take them back out and bring them to someone.
I'm just going to be a member for this one, so I'll just be asking them questions.
Yes, and I am the spokesperson, and the spokesperson does makes the trial fluent. They talk a lot in the beginning to explain to the person what it's going to be like.
I'm just a member. I'm going to be the recorder, and I would basically write down what stations you give and fill out the disposition order.
And I'm playing the role of the parent.
Juvenile.
So we're going to get started, and at this moment, they're going to be outside waiting for the court proceeding to begin. They were told
But
to
you
come.
can have them stand right here so we can get them here.
Oh. Okay. So right now, they aren't in the room. Okay. Hey, guys.
Hey, what's up? Hi.
Does everyone have the case?
Yeah. Oh,
Have you read over it?
not yet. No.
Okay, well,
Just
we're,
did.
okay.
Good job.
Well, so then what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple minutes to just jot down questions of what you guys think you'll ask about. Well, you actually have to.
Okay.
Why don't you guys tell them what the case is about?
All right. As an officer was leaving the station, she saw 4 youth emerge from an alley. The respondent had a lit cigarette in his mouth. When the youth saw the officer, he flicked the cigarette into the bushes. When questioned by the officer, the youth said that he did not know what the officer was talking about. When the officer showed the youth the cigarette butt in the youth confessed. The youth was cited.
So So what are some type of questions that we're going to want to ask today?
Where do you do the cigarette?
How often do you smoke?
And ask some open-ended questions, so not just yes or no answers.
Why did you choose to smoke instead of being positive?
Okay, so it sounds like you guys have a good idea of what's going on. And how old is he?
Oh, he's 12.
12, so he's sort of young. So we want to remember to make sure we don't use big language, right? Right.
Obviously
Okay.
intimidating.
He's 12 years old, so we don't want to use big language. We want to make sure that he sort of understands.
Right.
Okay, then I'm going to sit back and you guys can begin whenever you guys are ready.
Thanks, manager.
You're welcome.
You can call him now.
Okay, I didn't know, I didn't know.
Keep going.
Okay. I'm ready. All right. We're best ready.
Hello, welcome to Teen Court. Are you Peter and Mr. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, please walk this way. Please sit here.
Good morning and welcome to Lincoln County Teen Court. You are John Doe indeed, and you are his father. What would you,
Thanks, John.
you are John Doe, and you are his father. What would you like to be addressed as? Mr. Doe. All right. As panel members, we will not discuss this trial or what goes on here. We will not even discuss this case amongst ourselves or anyone else. So right now we will repeat our confidentiality oath. We all will stand. You guys can sit. All right. I do solemnly swear that I will not divulge, either by words or signs, any information which comes to my knowledge in the course of my service on the Lincoln County Teen Court panel, and that I will keep confidential all said proceedings which may be held in my presence. First, we will review the details and the circumstances of your incident. We'll talk about what has already been done, inside your family circle. We'll look at other issues and circumstances that are going on in your life right now. And we'll ask what you believe is a proper sanction or item to help solve your issue. Then we, as panel members, will send you out and we will discuss amongst ourselves what would be a proper sanction, what you could do to better yourself. And then we'll bring you back in and discuss what we decided for you to do. Before we start, do you have any questions about what will go on today, about Lincoln County Teen Court? All right. You, John Doe, elect to plead guilty, no contest, to your violation. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Yes. As a result, you have opted to voluntarily participate in Lincoln County Teen Court. Is this correct?
Yes.
Before I go into the details of the incident, do you understand the procedures that are going to take place here today in Teen Court?
Yes,
In your own words, please describe what happened.
just having a smoke with my friends. I got caught.
Was there peer pressure involved?
No,
Where'd you get the cigarette?
I got connections.
What do you mean?
I got connections.
Through 18-year-olds?
Yeah,
How often do you smoke?
every now and then,
Where were you in the incident?
in the alley.
In what city?
This one?
Why don't you be a little bit more cooperative?
Yeah, you're a little jerk.
Normally they're,
Where did you get the money to pay for the cigarettes?
My allowance.
Were you aware that he was smoking?
no, it wasn't.
What was your reaction when you found out?
Disappointed because my father died when I was in it.
How did you find out?
The police, when he got caught.
What were some of the consequences you received at home?
No more allowance because that's how he was paying for him, and he had to come home right after school, except for to go to work.
you work?
I have a job at Billy Bob's.
About how often would you say that you work?
Normally on weekends.
Do you smoke alone or with others?
With others, it's cooler to do it that way. It's no fun to have a smoke by yourself.
Do you feel that you are addicted to cigarettes? Why or why not?
No, because it's not like I need to have one every single day. I just kind of do it whenever I feel like it. Be cool, hang out with friends, whatever.
Do you realize, the effects that smoking has on your health?
Yes, because my grandfather, as he said, has passed away because of that.
What effect has that had on you?
Not much. We weren't really close.
Have you smoked since your arrest or why not?
No, just because he'd be watching me like a hawk. Didn't feel like getting caught again.
Do you think you'll ever smoke again?
Probably.
Why?
Just because too many things going around, stress reliever.
What would you guys have said if you would have said yes, he smoked since he's been caught? If
We're
you
gonna
would've said
rewind it.
yes.
You asked the question, have you smoked since, and he said yes.
We would during our, when deciding our sanctions, we would
Oh.
probably,
Oh, okay.
we'd probably do it a little bit more severe because we realize that he's repeating himself and we want to reverse that process, and if he keeps on doing it, we just want, in our sanctions, we would do something about it.
What would your questioning be if you would have said yes?
Why do you continue to keep smoking even though you've been caught?
What he's learned from the consequences, you know, if he has learned anything, because if he's still continuing. You know, so that goes along the lines of questioning the consequences, what did he learn from your consequences? If he says that he learned a lot, but then he's still doing it, that shows contradiction, and that we weigh that heavily in our decision.
Mr. Doe, what have you done already to punish your son? For what he did? Yeah. My bad.
How would you say you're doing in school?
Okay.
So for okay to you, is that A's and B's or B's and C's?
Pretty much C's. I don't really like much of my classes.
Is there any certain class that you're struggling with more than others?
No, I just don't like any of my classes.
If we would be able to offer you tutoring with any of your classes, would you be willing to cooperate with that?
Possibly, because most of the reasons that I don't like my classes is just because the teachers normally don't know what they're talking about.
What are your hobbies?
I like to hang out with my friends, things outside.
Do you have any pets?
No.
Do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother.
How does he feel about what you did?
He smokes as well.
Could you describe a typical weekend for us, like, you know, what you do
Friday nights I usually go to work really late, so I usually just come home after work and go to bed right away. Sleep in, maybe go hang out with my friends after that. I have to go to work again on Saturday night. Sunday I just kinda hang around the house.
Do you ever talk to your friends about this incident?
No, well, kind of, we laugh about it, but
What's your relationship with your father?
Not very good. I was surprised that he actually was disappointed in me when he found out, because mostly, some of the time I wonder if he even cares what I do. He's never home, always working, doing something or other.
Mr. Joe, how do you feel your relationship is?
Like you said, if we're not that close, we could probably be closer, because I do travel a lot for my job, but I would be fruitful with it, because his mom's disabled, so she can't live with
Any other questions? Anything else you think we should know before we deliberate? John Doe or Mr. Doe? Anything else? All right, the escort will now guide you out of the room.
That's outside the house, right? All right, you guys are gonna deliberate, just make something up, Marissa, have the escort come get them. And then
Okay, I'll make some, this should be fun.
you make up the dispositional order.
That's fine.
Here's one that you can follow right there.
You see it. Oh, just and there's the options. All right. Welcome back. What we as teen court decided will be your sanctions, or what you can do to better yourself, is 10 hours of community service at the Lincoln County Humane Society. We believe that if you volunteer yourself, you won't have as much time to maybe think about smoking or have that negative peer pressure. We also have you sign up for the Success Skills Program class, and what this will do is, it's a class and it focuses on some positive decision making that you can make. To sign up for this, Amanda will give you a form right here. It's a pamphlet discussing it and what it's all about. It's actually a pretty interesting class, and I think you will get a lot out of it.
there are costs to it.
Is there a cost? I don't know. You can ask me this. No.
We usually go through this before she does this, so
Yes.
she knows, but.
And also, we believe that you could find out more about the negative effects of cigarettes if you maybe wrote an essay about it. So we also assigned you a 250-word essay. Besides that, we have the Tobacco Truths class. We really think that you need more to do to better yourself. So there's this Tobacco Truths program class, and it's $25. If you have trouble paying this fee, I'm sure you can talk to Amanda and work something out. Never mind that word essay. I think you have enough right here with your 10 hours of community service at the Lincoln County Humane Society, your Success Skills Program, and your Tobacco Truths Program.
Is there anything he has to complete for the class before it starts?
No,
Use this.
no, I don't know.
Yeah, before the class starts, there's a couple things that you're going to want to complete beforehand. But the program itself focuses on tobacco use, the negative effects of it, and why it's such a serious case, and sort of shows the implications to using it.
Thank you. Do you have any questions about these sanctions, John or Mr.? Failure to complete your sanctions by the date of June 12th will result to your case being transferred back to the court of origin. If you do complete the sanctions, you will not have to pay the fine, and the offense will not appear on your permanent record. Once again, everything said in this court will be held confidential. We will not discuss this amongst ourselves or anybody else. If you have any questions about today, please contact our team court coordinator, Amanda Costner. Thank you for joining and participating.
I would like our trainers first to pick a table. I have 1, 2, 3. We'll use this table as a 4th table. Everybody else, I would like you guys to please line up. This is organization.